It is a flashback Friday here at Occupy Democrats to pretty much any time in the recent or long ago past 10 years ago when Donald Trump goes to playing God and, or as we like to call it, dictator. Because in this breaking story, when Donald Trump plays that game, very often he winds up getting told, no, you don't get to do that. You can't run the United States by executive order and as a dictator. And in this breaking story, I'm going to show you in a few seconds, holy smokes, did a court just slam Trump right in the teeth hard, and I mean hard, because he's trying to pretend, just like he did with the Alien Enemies Act, so that he could be sending the National Guard and the military into cities like Los Angeles and into Chicago or other places such as Maryland and or what he's doing right now, D.C. He did the same thing with tariffs, and man, he just got slapped. Before I show that to you, take a quick listen to this sound.
President Trump's new tariffs officially take effect, upending the global trading system and threatening to force Americans to pay more for everything from groceries to appliances and clothing. The tariffs taking effect at midnight on some 90 countries. It puts tariffs overall on U.S. imports at the highest they've been since the Great Depression. The president touting his tariffs just minutes before the clock struck midnight, posting on social media, quote, billions of dollars in tariffs are now flowing into the United States of America. Today marks the culmination of a tariff rollout that began more than 4 months ago. Just 31%, that's less than a third, say the economy is excellent or good.
Well, yeah, because people aren't in favor of it.
Until now, many of these big companies say they have been eating the tariff cost themselves. You've seen the big hit that the automakers have taken, billions of dollars they've taken in losses from the tariffs. You know, this president was elected because people thought the cost of living was out of control. And now we're on the forefront here of what many say will be higher prices for all the things you're seeing there on your screen. I will say clothing prices have already started to rise, footwear prices as well.
People are still trying to convince Americans that somehow the countries pay for it. No, we do. There's more.
Can you give us a big picture sense of the impact that you are seeing so far due to these tariffs, and what do you make of where we are right now?
I think it's very clear that tariffs are really taking a toll on this economy, but it is unquestionably the case that the economy has been dealt a non-trivial blow. So GDP grew at 2.5% last year. So far this year, it's growing at half that pace, 1.2%. Now, I know that's kind of an obscure number. What are we talking about with this aggregate kind of analysis? But that really makes a difference. When the economy is growing about half as fast as it should, which it is, it shows up in the job market as slower job growth.
And now, in this breaking story, a federal judge has said no. You don't get to use another unique scenario to try and invent playing God. Take a look at this breaking story about Donald Trump's tariffs being absolutely slapped down. Here it is.
We're getting some breaking news into us right now. A federal appeals court has ruled that most of the global tariffs that President Trump has put in place are illegal. We go right now to NBC's Brian Chung, who covers business for us. Brian, what more do we know about this ruling, how it will impact the president's timeline? And then, of course, I'm guessing this is already setting up for an appeal.
Yeah, Tom, we are just reading over these documents right now, so we're kind of going through it as I'm speaking to you right now. But it seems like the high-level takeaway here is that a court, this being the the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, has decided that the government's use of these what they call emergency authorities to try to tariff essentially every country around the world on a bilateral basis are not legal, and that would imply that they are going to strike them down, which would be really impactful for the 70 plus or so countries that the United States memorably over the past few months has been implementing these case by case tariff rates, 15% in some countries, 20%, 50%, as you'll recall with Brazil. Again, what the president has been using as the legal justification for doing these tariffs is called the Emergency Act. It's called the IEEPA. I don't need to go through the entire acronym right now, but this is what the court is saying is illegal. This would not cover, and I want to point out, this is an important distinction here, this would not cover separate types of tariffs on specific industries.
Oh, it gets better.
Federal court deals major blow to Trump's global tariffs. President Donald Trump's economic agenda was dealt a crushing blow with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit striking down his authority to enact tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The ruling potentially guts a core policy of the Trump administration, which has imposed sweeping tariffs on goods from virtually the entire world, using them both to try to spur U.S. domestic production and to create leverage to bargain for better trade deals with foreign countries. The decision, however, is on hold from taking effect until October 14, which will give Trump extensive time to appeal to the Supreme Court. In the decision, the court upheld a lower decision from the U.S. Court of International Trade, finding that Trump's use of EIPA to enact tariffs was well outside the authority granted by that law. The challenged executive orders in this case exceed the authority provided by the government's interpretation of IEEPA. Both the trafficking tariffs and the reciprocal tariffs are unbounded in scope, amount, and duration, stated the court. These tariffs apply to nearly all articles imported into the United States, and in the case of the reciprocal tariffs, apply to almost all countries, impose high rates which are ever-changing and exceed those set out in the HTSUS, and are not limited in duration. Thus, the court wrote, the trafficking and reciprocal tariffs assert an expansive authority that is beyond the authority delegated to the president by IEEPA.
And of course, Donald himself had to lose his mind and go off on Truth Social about how unfairly I'm been treated and partisan judge and all this BS.
Real Donald Trump, all tariffs are still in effect. Today, a highly partisan appeals court incorrectly said that our tariffs should be removed, but they know the United States of America will win in the end. If these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. It would make us financially weak, and we have to be strong. The USA will no longer tolerate enormous trade deficits and unfair tariffs and non-tariff trade barriers imposed by other countries, friend or foe, that undermine our manufacturers, farmers, and everyone else. If allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy the United States of America. At the start of this Labor Day weekend, we should all remember that tariffs are the best tool to help our workers and support companies that produce great made-in-America products. For many years, tariffs were allowed to be used against us by our uncaring and unwise politicians. Now, with the help of the United States Supreme Court, we will use them to the benefit of our nation and make America rich, strong, and powerful again. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
So once again, like so many other things, Donald Trump is going to continue to do whatever it is he wants to do until somebody finally stops him. Because this, just like the Alien Enemies Act and other such things, are going to wind up at the Supreme Court. And right now, because that court is gerrymandered thanks to Mitch McConnell and his abject absurdity of not letting Merrick Garland have a hearing, and then Merrick Garland and Joe Biden not coming down on Trump, yep, this is where we're at. And whether the Supreme Court will actually function like they're supposed to, who knows? In the meantime, stay frosty.